After 18 years of no contact, my abusive parents barged into my apartment demanding I give it to them and sue for alimony. That's how one got dead and another is behind bars. So I'm Elena, a 37-year-old woman living quite a comfortable life now, thanks to myself and only myself. I come from a very conservative family dominated by men. My grandparents had 2 daughters, my mother Sophia, my aunt Carmen, and my 9 uncles. From a country where Catholic values are deeply engraved in people's minds and souls. As a girl, I was always looked down upon and kept on a tight leash. I was supposed to be seen but not heard. Be polite and subservient towards everyone. Be pretty and girly, etc. That never sat well with me. I was that jeans and dirt type of girl. Not the porcelain doll everyone expected me to be. Thanks to that, I spent most of my childhood days grounded in my room, and to this day, I refuse to have an ironing machine at home. Shortly before my 18th birthday was my tipping point. Things I do not wish to disclose happened, and I decided to simply vanish into thin air. The next 14 years were, let's just say that it wasn't the most vulnerable time of my life, but I managed. By the age of 25, I had bought my first house without a mortgage credit or anything else. Hard cash. Since it was a time when I was working at a club and also sleeping there, I decided to rent the house out. Extra income never hurt anybody. And besides, I didn't plan on working in a club forever. I enrolled myself in online classes, finished high school, and thought that it was a good time to go back home and show everyone that I could actually make something out of myself. That didn't go as I thought it would. There were a lot of harsh words. Things got pretty ugly pretty quickly. And let's say that I had to take about a month or so off work to physically recover from the family reunion. My then boss's wife, bless Maria's heart, was and is a gentle, loving soul. So I stayed at their place during my recovery. That's when I decided that it wasn't worth the hassle and heartache of trying to win my family over. I changed my legal name from Isabella to Elena, changed my phone number and email, deleted everything connected to my past, and flipped my life around. Despite my profession back then, I had a way of getting along with older people. They liked peace and quiet, and so did I. By the age of 30, while still working at the club and privately, I got my nursing degree and elderly care certification. I'm not from the US, so it might be different, and owned 3 rental houses around the age of 31. I got a job as a live-in nurse caretaker for an elderly couple, Hans and Greta, in Switzerland, and I have been doing that to this day. I'm jumping between Germany and Switzerland as a living nurse. Pay is pretty good. I have no living expenses. I have rental houses as additional income, and life is great. Last year, I was able to make my biggest dream come true. I was able to buy a building with 22 flats. Don't get me wrong, it's not a high-rise or anything. The building has 6 stories each with 3 to 4 flats. Nothing fancy, but I was happy. My idea was to rent out the flats at the minimum rent possible. For those in need, people who need a safe place to stay while getting their lives back on track. And everything was going well until last Tuesday. I have an agency responsible for renting out the flats and interviewing people interested in living there. I sit on every single one of them personally or online because I want to be able to see and get to know my future tenants. Boy, was I surprised when I saw that the people who were in the online meeting were none other than my parents, Victor and Sophia. At that point, I saw red. I told the agent that hell would freeze over and start burning out before any of them stepped a foot onto my property. I then told Victor and Sophia to go to hell and never come back, or I would put them in prison for the rest of their lives for what they did to me in the past, if they ever tried to contact me in any way, shape, or form. Since Tuesday, I've received countless phone calls from extended family about how I've brought shame to the family with my past actions and how I should repent for my sins by helping my family. They got my number from the real estate agent, Thomas. All my potential and current tenants have it just in case something comes up. My number is given out to potential tenants and current ones as well. The flats are nothing fancy, but it's a place for people who are down on life and are rebuilding everything from nothing. Sometimes unexpected things pop up, and I want them to be able to contact me in case of any emergency. Like I said, I changed my legal name, so Thomas had no way of knowing that we're related. And besides, he doesn't know about the past. So it looks like no matter how one tries to keep the past in the past, it always finds a way to hunt one down. For me, it took the form of Victor and Sophia forcing themselves into my life, literally forcing. Like I mentioned, I work as a live-in nurse caretaker for the elderly and jump between Germany and Switzerland for work until Friday. I was at work in Germany, but that changed drastically in a matter of hours. After quite a few phone calls I received from my tenants, it turns out that Victor and Sophia broke into one of the empty apartment units. This is actually an issue and a big one in the country where I come from, Poland. We have a law that actually prohibits all evictions between October 1st and March 31st, and you also can't evict elderly people on disability and those who live with them. Due to the nature of my country, breaking and entering or illegal squatting is also off the table to get them out of my property. I was back in Poland on Saturday morning due to this, but what I didn't expect was a letter from the court in my mailbox stating that Victor and Sophia are suing me for alimony. After reading this, I actually flew into a rage. And the only reason why I'm actually able to get this off my chest is thanks to my lovely tenants Robert and Anna. Robert was the one who physically stopped me from breaking down the doors to the flat that Victor and Sophia took over. And Anna and her dog Apollo are total pros at calming your nerves. Who can resist a goofball golden retriever? Guys, you need to understand something here. I despise Victor and Sophia to the core. Every single molecule of my body emanates pure and unfiltered hatred towards them. Endless tirades of hate spewing from Sophia's mouth at each and every single tiniest mishap. My room being reduced to nothing but my bed, desk, and chair. Nothing else. No curtains, lamps, bed sheets, toys. Nothing for the smallest mistake. To this day, I have a few marks on my back from Victor's lessons on respect. They're not big, but they will stay with me till the end. The iron machine's wet cord is no joke. The day of my 18th birthday, and their indifference to my two uncles, Pavel and Dmitri, introducing me to my adult life. After which, I decided that enough was enough. The month it took for me to get back into shape after I went back to show them that I actually made something good out of myself. There were many more. I just don't know what to do, what to feel, what to think. Anger, sadness, frustration, disappointment, fear, helplessness. I finally started to make my biggest dream come true. And now those two toxic waste specimens have decided to ruin my dream and drag me down to a point where I just want... I'm sorry, guys, it's just so much. I'm seriously done with everything. The amount of hatred someone can have for another human being who did nothing wrong to them except being born simply can't be described by any words I know. I've got to get this out of my system before I go completely nuts or break down again. Victor and Sophia were monsters. Picture a perfect family that raged and held behind closed doors. I know what it feels like to have your room stripped of everything as a child. Being beaten up with a belt or a cable to the point where it leaves permanent scars on your back. Half of your side sliced open with a broken plate after Sophia gets into a fit of rage. Why? Because that damn plate fell out of your hands due to exhaustion after 30+ hours of being forced to stay awake. Oh, let's not forget about the 20-centimeter burn scar on my arm. Even now, you can tell where the front and back of the ironing machine were. The dress wasn't ironed perfectly enough. The indifference to what Pavel and Dmitri did. Almost 20 years. I've managed to put that behind me. I've learned to look at those scars as a reminder of how far I've managed to get away from hell. But hell always catches up. It doesn't matter how far you run away, it always comes back to haunt you. Always. I had my appointment with my lawyers, Mr. Kowalski and Ms. Nowak, on Monday. We went with the police to get Victor and Sophia out of the apartment. It turns out that tenant eviction during the winter is illegal, just as evicting the elderly or people with only Social Security. All of the above apply to Victor and Sophia, but they were not tenants and could be forcefully removed from the building by the police. That didn't go well. I don't have a father anymore, and Sophia got arrested when I arrived with the police and my lawyers in tow to get them out of my property. Things got ugly, and I mean really ugly. Victor, hope he burns in hell for the rest of eternity, got worked up over the situation and got a heart attack. Died probably immediately. He literally just dropped to the floor and never got up. Sophia, the raging lunatic she was and is, had one of her rage attacks and decided that since it's my fault that her husband is dead, I should share his fate. Before the police were able to restrain her, she managed to leave me her final parting gift, another damn scar on my leg. I don't care that Victor is dead. I'm actually glad. I don't care that Sophia is locked up. I don't give a rat's ass about it. It took me years to get over my past, accept what had happened, and learn to live with all the reminders of the past that I carry on my body. What I care about is having to deal with yet another one. Even in the end, they ultimately came on top, leaving me with another reminder that the past always comes back to haunt you no matter how hard you try to get away. Thanks to that show, Mr. Kowalski and Ms. Nowak were able to send a petition to court to get the alimony lawsuit dismissed together with a bunch of other things, and the illegal living situation also resolved itself. I have enough evidence to keep Sophia behind bars for years to come, and Victor is burning in hell. But it brings me nothing but pain because they won again. They managed to destroy my peace and my confidence. They managed to take away the joy I felt till they showed up. And they left me with a final reminder of them. Hello, everyone. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to respond to everyone who reached out. I sort of took a leave of absence from life. I had to stay a few days in a hospital because of a mental breakdown. This wasn't caused by Victor passing away or Sophia being put behind bars. That's something I would gladly throw a grand party to celebrate. But by having everything, my entire damn past, come back all at once to haunt me after the reality of my body having another battle scar because of those monsters. Every single person is able to deal with a certain amount of drama at any given time. But when you have to manage years and years of pain, suffering, and abuse all at once, it tends to be simply too much. Especially when you are simply on your own without any family or friends to vent to. I'm sorry for that rant, but when one has no one, sometimes even the internet and some strangers can go a long way. Victor is dead. There was no police brutality or anything of the sort. He simply couldn't handle the situation stress or whatever else came with that, so he dropped dead on the spot. An ambulance was called, and he was pronounced dead. He was then taken to the morgue because they needed to get the autopsy done. Sophia is behind bars, and thanks to my lovely cutthroat lawyers, she will remain there at least for the duration of the upcoming criminal case trial. For the first time in my life, I'm happy that the justice system works slowly. To be honest, the longer it's going to take, the happier I'm going to be. I've already spoken with Mr. Kowalski and Ms. Nowak, and I said that any sort of out-of-court settlement is completely off the table, and to not give up even a fraction of an inch both in criminal and civil cases. As for my tenants, well, I had a lot of questions after the show that took place, but I managed to avoid answering most of them. Quite a few years ago, I learned the hard way that no matter who you are now, you're going to be judged based on who you were in the past. A working girl, if you get what I mean. That's the reality of the country I live in and the majority of the people here. I've learned to be alone and deal with everything myself. Sometimes life is what it is, and all we can do is simply accept it. Friends and family are luxuries not meant for everyone. It hurts, but it is what it is. Story 2. I called my lover a pervert and a weirdo, and I mistreated him. I had faith in my buddies. I now deeply regret ending our relationship. I spent a year with him, and we had an incredible connection. He always treated me with respect and made me feel appreciated. Even when I didn't ask for it, he would always lend me a hand and do small things for me. And the sex was fantastic. We simply had a sense of complete compatibility. He told me he had something to confess about 3 months ago. He said that he had a foot fetish and that he had kept it a secret from me because he didn't want me to think poorly of him after an ex-partner found it strange. In hindsight, it was rather apparent because he was often complimenting my nail art and was quite willing to touch my feet if I asked him to. Because he thought I would look pretty with French tips, he even paid for me to have a pedicure. From that point on, not much changed. During intercourse, he would suck on my toes, which felt amazing, but he wasn't forceful or anything. A few weeks back, I was chatting with 3 of my friends when I remarked that he loved my feet. 2 of them began warning me that he may be a creep and that this was a warning sign. They showed me all these websites and forums and individuals who take creepy pictures of women's feet, even though I had seen some people who were odd about it online previously, and I became nervous. Despite his neutrality, my third buddy who was present suggested that I speak with him because he had never really exuded those types of signals. I foolishly ignored it and put it out of my mind till I saw him again. We were playing around at my flat 2 days later. I retreated from him as he began kissing my feet. I spent about 10 minutes reiterating what my friends had taught me about how individuals who adore feet are strange and uninterested in other things when he asked me what was wrong. He told me he didn't know I felt that way about him, but he seemed genuinely depressed. He rose and walked away. Why I uttered any of that dumb shit to him is beyond me. He had never been spooky before. To me, he had always been affectionate. I did, however, call him a pervert. I instantly turned to my pals after that, and they informed me that he had been verified. He departed, making him one of those scary feet men, rather than speaking with me and offering an apology. Despite my impartial friends' repeated advice to speak with him, I spent 2 days wondering whether there was something wrong with him. I texted him when he didn't get back to me. We must discuss our friendship. He returned the text. He promised to visit that evening, and he did. I'm not going to stay with someone who thinks I'm a predator, he remarked, carrying a box of my belongings that I had left at his house. Then he just turned to go. I remained silent in shock, but that soon gave way to rage. I simply believed they were correct. What a fing creep he is. I'm relieved he's gone. When I went to my friends once more, they promised to help me move on from him and find a normal person. Once more, my impartial buddy counseled me against ending my relationship in this manner. However, I am a fool. I'm awful. I deserve everything because I'm a piece of garbage. I've been thinking about him every night for the last month, and the more I think about it, the larger the pit in my stomach becomes. A week ago, everything blew out. When I became really inebriated, I suddenly had that terrible revelation. Nothing caused me to lose the man I loved. Nothing. I would never be with him again since it was my own effing fault. I contacted both of my friends who had invited me out as I was crying uncontrollably. Along with a few other things I won't go into here, I informed them that I never wanted to see them again. On everything, I blocked them. I couldn't stand to talk to my other buddy, even though she attempted to contact me. I called him at around 1 a.m. It got through since he hadn't blocked me. I pleaded with him to return me. I shared what my buddies had told me with him. He wasn't a pervert, I told him, and I should never have said anything to him. I assured him that I trusted him, that I loved him more than anything, that I would never believe he was a weirdo because I know he isn't like that, and that he could do anything he wanted with any part of my body. Eventually, he interrupted me. He asked me to stop drinking and go to bed if I was doing so. He sounded so depressed, and it broke my heart all over again. I didn't answer when he tried to phone me earlier tonight. He could tell me to just F and leave him alone, and I'm so freaking afraid of it. I am aware that I would merit it. I can't do it, even though I know I deserve worse. I'm incredibly in love with him. I require him. All I want is for him to touch me anywhere he pleases and hug me once again. Additionally, let me know that he pardons me. Every time I consider the possibility that he may never be with me again, I feel like throwing up. If only I weren't so dumb at it. I texted him to let him know that if he wanted to chat, I would give him a call back tomorrow. That would be all right, he said. About my buddies, too. I will attempt to speak with each of the three of them. The more I think about it, the more I recall small facts that suggest they never truly loved my ex, so I'm still going to cut off the two that drove me to this. My other companion. Tomorrow, I'll attempt to call. I must also sincerely apologize to her. I came to the realization that despite any pressure, I am solely to blame for this. I shouldn't have talked to them about my ex's obsession because I should have taken the time to realize that he wasn't who they were portraying him as. I told them that he thought my feet were attractive, but I never really talked about the sexual aspect of it. I shouldn't have brought it up. When we talk about it together, I'll tell him everything. I contacted him once more to ask whether he would be comfortable meeting in person instead of speaking on the phone. Instead, then apologizing over the phone, I would like to see him in person. I will be going over to see him at noon since he responded that he was okay with that. I want to provide some background on this matter before moving on to the next section. I realize that none of this absolves me in any way for what I have done. Those three pals of mine have been with me since high school. I've trusted them with many personal aspects about my life since we've always been so close. We all had many happy moments and supported one another at difficult times. In elementary and early high school, they were also my first close buddies. I didn't spend much time with other children and kept a lot to myself. Although I now have new pals, I don't trust anyone as much as I did them. I believe that many of you are correct when you remark that I lack courage and have allowed them to make all of my decisions. Now that I think about it, I can't recall ever choosing what we did on a given day where we ate or anything else. I was the same way with my ex, letting him choose everything he wanted, even when he asked me directly what I wanted. I'm aware that none of it justifies my weakness, but that's how I've always been. I have already found a few therapists that take my insurance, and I will give them a call to make an appointment. After going over a few of these comments, the idea of him bringing me back and me doing something terrible to him again is making me more and more afraid. I'm taking down some notes to help me organize my thoughts on what I should say to him, but I'm not sure if I should tell him any of this. Well prepared. I'll start by saying I'm sorry for what I did to him, even if it's everything I can do to escape before he goes. I will apologize to him and promise to follow his decision even if it means I won't see him again. I appreciate your remarks. Although I am aware of my shortcomings, I will make an effort to improve. And I will become someone he deserves to be with if he does bring me back. If anything changes, I'll probably give an update later. Third edit. I recently returned from a meeting with him, and I anticipate penning a significant amount of the update. Is it better to create a completely new thread or simply modify it into existing post? Before I begin, is there a final edit? Nothing in this update should be interpreted as a self-absolution of blame or guilt. I acknowledge that I made a mistake and that I alone am to blame. I'm not attempting to minimize that or my actions. A park is located around midway between our two locations. We agreed to meet there. I was somewhat anxious when I saw him approaching because I had arrived a few minutes earlier than he did. The want to weep came, but I suppressed it. I didn't want to give him the impression that I was attempting to control him. He held me, which made it worse, but I was able to gather myself. I told him straight out that I was messed up when he inquired how I was doing. He told me he was well when I asked him the same question, but his expression was still the same dejected one from when I had last seen him. Before we discussed anything else, I asked him if I could tell him anything and took out the message I had written apologizing. I apologized to him for everything. I apologized for giving him a sense of insecurity. I apologized for ever suggesting he was a pervert. I apologized for violating his confidence by disclosing our sexual activity to others. I apologized for not getting back to him. I apologized for not defending him. I apologized for not defending myself and allowing anything other than the two of us to influence how I felt about him. I apologized for not communicating with him sooner and for keeping him in the dark for a month. I apologized for my inebriated tirade, for attempting to sway his feelings to return to me, and most importantly, for giving him the impression that I still believed he was a pervert. I apologized for injuring him in the same manner as his former partner. I realized he was crying at one point, and I was at my breaking point. As I finished reading it to him, I started crying. I expressed my genuine happiness with him and hoped that he wouldn't be deterred from pursuing his fetish with anybody else in the future. We shared a few tears together when he thanked me. He began by telling me that he had phoned because 2 of my friends had called to express their concern for me and to share some of the events that had occurred. Together with one of the 2 friends who had given me the information regarding foot fetishes, it was the neutral friend. He wanted to talk about more essential things, so I didn't ask any more questions and didn't receive many details, but I suppose I could obtain the facts straight from one of them. After he told me this, I was a little disappointed and afraid that he would believe I was using my friends to attempt to influence him, but he soon moved on. He filled me in on his ex's entire tale. About 2 years prior, they had been together for a longer period of time than we had. He disclosed his fetish to her. The difference was that it made her feel unpleasant right away. No matter how much he pleaded, she informed him she was going and vowed never to bring it up again. However, he later informed me that what I had done made him feel even worse, since it appeared as though I had welcomed him before stabbing him in the back. I let him continue, even though I wanted to drop to my knees and ask for forgiveness. Eventually, we both became silent for a bit before he inquired as to whether we were finished. I realized that I ought to have shown strength by telling him that I would accept his choice. I'm weak, though. I questioned him about the possibility that we may still be together. He admitted to me that although he still had love for me, he couldn't bear the thought of me causing him pain once more. I told my pals about it and that I wanted to start going to therapy. He informed me that although he was pleased with what I was doing, it didn't make him change his mind. He indicated that when I've worked on myself, there could be a possibility in the future, but for now, he was too hurt. It seems to me that he said it only to protect me from harm. I had to resist the impulse to sprint after him as we said our goodbyes and gave each other another embrace. Although I'm aware that I made a mistake, in the end, I'm taking action to ensure that it doesn't happen again. I'm going to give the neutral friend a call and ask her if she'll pardon me for not speaking to her as well. In order to prevent me from feeling the need to annoy him, she might be able to come over and conceal my phone from me. Regarding my other 2 buddies, I have no idea. As of right now, I know nothing. I've been sobbing for approximately 5 of the past 6 hours and I'm almost done. I've only slept for around 3 hours. I'm thinking about simply trying to get some sleep and then searching for therapists in the morning. I'm not sure if I'll continue to update. I apologize to everyone who was hoping for more. Another edit. Consequently, this will be my final article. After I fell asleep for a bit, my friend contacted me and came over. She was worried that I hadn't spoken to her, but she wasn't angry at all. I sincerely apologized to her. After all that happened today, it felt amazing even if I don't deserve her generosity. To everyone who sent me a worried message. Thank you. I believe I'll be all right. I will continue to attend treatment in order to address my issues and ensure that I never again do this to a loved one. Most likely, I won't post on this account ever again. Some people claimed to be persons in my life and sent me strange messages. Therefore, it is not me if you ever see someone attempting to update this story. My acquaintance is the only person in my social circle who utilizes Reddit. I'm done with that. She promised not to post about it once I showed her this. Good night. We appreciate you viewing the video. We've got more stories in store for you if you're interested in hearing them. Just press the like button, subscribe to our channel, and tell your friends about it. Story 3. The First Tale. I started seeing my coworker, but I keep my polyamory a secret from my 10-year marriage to maintain harmony. In an attempt to create a happy family, I came out to my wife and coworker, but both of these entitled ladies turned me down. My wife left me after 10 years of dating, and my coworker treats me like a jerk. My 4 years of marriage have been enjoyable. Not only have we not murdered each other well, but we have also been really nice and even comfortable with one another. I seldom argue with my wife. I would describe it as a solid marriage, something that most people would be envious of, except from the typical passive-aggressive mood swings that everyone has experienced. And that's the worst part, isn't it? Because it seems like even that is insufficient for me. In all, we have been together for 10 years, and I genuinely love her. She's humorous, kind, and intelligent. She has a strong belief in LGBTQ rights, social justice, and other issues. The type of individual that truly examines legislation before casting a ballot and volunteers for local issues. And I adore that quality in her. Or perhaps I simply enjoy the way it makes me appear. It's difficult to say. This is where things become complex, though. No one is aware that I've been polyamorous my whole life. Not my friends, not my wife. Up until today, not even a random Reddit topic. I haven't told anyone. Being homosexual was viewed as a demonic affliction in my hardline conservative upbringing. It was clear that convincing people that I could love more than one person was not going to work. I buried it. I never took any action. Mostly because I asked myself, how likely is it that you'll actually meet two people who'd be okay with that? Or even someone who would comprehend it? I put that aspect of myself in a mental attic, folded it up like an old blanket, and went on. Normal people only love one person, after all. That's the matter. It's your responsibility to do it. However, things have changed recently. I've evolved. It can be the isolation caused by the epidemic. Perhaps it's the soul-depriving place where we reside. Perhaps it's the incessant onslaught of political and social turmoil on every screen. I'm not sure. Whatever it is, though, it makes me feel something. And through the water's gap. Her name is irrelevant. Let's give her a call. You see, she works with me, and she's perhaps the most amazing person I've encountered in a long time. Extremely sharp. Confident, but soft-spoken. The type of individual who pays attention to what you have to say. This is the energy she carries with her. Similar like entering a room and turning on a switch that illuminates the entire space. Although she is different from my wife, she is the best in every aspect. The same calm courage, the same compassion, and the same awful ability to keep reminding me that life goes on. Each time she grins. But it also feels different. I get excited around her. My chest feels like it has a pulse. After I flatlined for months, it was as if someone had slammed a defibrillator into my rib cage. It's gotten more and more apparent the more we speak. Something is going on between us. She is too courteous to say things directly. But the way her touch hovers a little longer than necessary, the look she gives me, the slight change in tone of her voice when we're alone. This isn't a fantasy. Something is there. Something tangible. And because I love my wife, I'm stuck now. I genuinely do. However, I adore C2. Before it really happened, I didn't believe that was feasible. However, I am 35 years old, married, and totally smitten with someone I shouldn't be attracted to. Naturally, I followed common sense and began making plans for how to deal with this in the most emotionally responsible manner imaginable, or what I believe to be in charge. First stage of treatment. I want to prepare myself with the appropriate terminology before I unleash this emotional bomb on my life, not because I believe I'm mistaken, mind you. Step 2. Carefully and discreetly talk to C without being obtrusive or strange. Only enough to get things started. Verify whether she shares my feelings. And I'll be honest, if she does. Inform her that I'm ill. Inform her that I am married. Arrange everything like a smorgasbord. And pray that she doesn't simply turn away in terror. Perhaps she's amenable to it. She is forward-thinking. She understands subtleties. Step 3. After treatment, when gauging shows interest, I come honest to my wife. That way, rather than just saying, hey, I love someone else too, I have something tangible to offer. Unexpected. I'll tell her that I've always been poly, but that doesn't alter my feelings for her or the fact that I've never cheated, that I'm attempting to approach this honestly, since I truly am. But if I'm being honest, the reality is, I'm not doing any of this because I have to, but I suppose that's what Reddit is for. I want both of them, which is why I'm doing it. I don't want to hear about the calories, and that's the true reason I want my cake and another one. People will accuse me of being self-centered, of playing with fire, and of ruining a perfectly fine marriage because of an infatuation. It's more than simply a crush, though. It's affection. Genuine, authentic affection. Furthermore, who in heck made it a terrible thing? This is not what I asked for. I didn't search for it. It simply occurred. Everyone says something about love isn't that right, that it comes as a surprise to you. Perhaps I'm the jerk in this situation. Perhaps I'm simply a coward who uses romantic rhetoric to cover up his midlife crisis. But perhaps this is the first time in my life that I'm being open about what I want. Remarks. Wow, you're just an entitled wimp trying to get away with it. You're not poly. You're planning to emotionally cheat with a younger coworker who most likely views you as a cordial mentor at most, even if you adore your wife. Before telling your wife the truth, you want to see how things work with her. It's not poly. That is deliberate treachery. Honesty, not side quests, is the foundation of polyamory. You're not conflicted. All you're doing is lining up an escape hatch in case it crashes and creating a fantasy. Your emotional affair should not be a surprise to your wife. You're not having trouble finding love. Being a self-centered jerk who desires a second relationship without any repercussions is something you're struggling with. I have equal affection for both of them, is a joke. After 10 years of marriage, you feel alive all of a sudden and realize that this office girl is your soulmate. You've already crossed emotional boundaries, and it's disgusting that you're putting this coworker before your wife by attempting to lock her down before even telling her. Cheaters work like this. Before the truth is revealed, get the next girl ready. You ought to feel embarrassed. Third comment. Emotional manipulation is evident throughout this entire situation. You are presenting this as a self-discovery, but in reality, you are merely laying the groundwork for your divorce while feigning a profound and spiritual relationship. Poly is not a justification for emotionally catching someone else behind their back and surprising your partner. It is based on transparency and consent, both of which you are woefully lacking. Your excuses don't help the situation. What you're doing is a slow-motion emotional affair. I'm in love with my coworker if my husband brought this home. I still love you, so it's all right. No sense. I immediately dump his ass. You are not a polyamorous person. You're a self-centered man trying to maintain your current relationship while seeking approval from a new person. Just in case. Update. Okay, so I'm updating because it seems that being honest and growing emotionally are crimes that carry consequences. I made an effort to act morally. I followed your advice. Not most of it, as the majority of you merely desired to set me on fire. And I proceeded with my strategy. A plan that incidentally was born out of self-awareness, love, and a desire to stop lying to people. I had no intention of playing people or sneaking around. My goal was to finally live in accordance with my identity. However, the world seems to favor simple lies over difficult realities. First, let's talk about my colleagues. You see, I spoke to her in a composed, mature, and respectful manner. I didn't make a dramatic or improper confession. I explained that I've been doing a lot of self-discovery, which is true that I've been identifying as poly for a long time. Also true, and that I had developed feelings for her. Not, hey, leave your life and be my mistress feelings. Genuine, respectful admiration and emotional connection. I told her there was no pressure and I just wanted to be honest because I value authenticity. And what do I get? A professional boundary speech. A thank you, but no. And next thing I know, she's requesting to move departments like what? The actual hell. I was vulnerable. I opened up. I made space for her to speak her truth. But I guess people aren't ready for that kind of realness. It's fine though. Really, I didn't expect her to reciprocate. Not entirely. I just wanted to see where things stood. That's when I knew I had to talk to my wife. I prepared. I made notes. I went over it with my therapist. I thought maybe since she's always been open-minded and always been a champion for LGBTQ+ and alternative lifestyles that she'd at least hear me out, not jump into a triad overnight. Just understand. So I told her. I laid it all out in the most emotionally respectful, considered way possible. And she just shut down. Didn't even raise her voice. Just looked at me like I was dirt and asked if I was only coming clean because I got rejected. I mean, well, after everything we've gone through. After 10 years of love, laughter, and teamwork, I believed I'd created enough credit in our relationship to have one hard talk without being treated like I cheated. I didn't cheat. I haven't done anything wrong but feel something for someone else, and I was honest about it. She packed a suitcase that night and headed for her sister's apartment. She hasn't answered my calls. She left a note claiming she wanted space and that I've damaged her trust, such as I literally attempted to do things the responsible way. I could have lied. I could have concealed it. However, I didn't. And now I'm the villain. Nobody wants to listen to this. However, I believe that when you stop doing what makes them comfortable, they just want to punish you. It has nothing to do with right or wrong. It has to do with people's need for love to remain modest, straightforward, and controlled. Love isn't little, though. Love is messy. It's large, disorganized, and occasionally inconvenient. And now I find myself at our apartment by myself. My spouse has left. Everyone is acting like I'm the Antichrist, and my coworker seems aloof, for having the audacity to feel many emotions simultaneously. I still think I made the correct decision. Love, in my opinion, is more than people are prepared to acknowledge. I don't care if I lose everything since I was honest. I'm no longer living a lie, at least. I don't regret who I am. Remarks. First comment. I don't regret who I am. You are acting like a martyred prophet of love after you emotionally cheated on your wife, told a coworker about it, and then revealed that your spouse had been rejected twice. Now you're just a guy who played the misunderstood hero and wanted to be loved by two ladies. You lost your marriage when you risked it for a crush. Reaching this conclusion is narcissistic, not bold. You didn't tell the truth. You were captured by accident. Honesty was not what you want. Under the guise of polyamory, you sought authorization to deceive. Both ladies now said, hell no. You're acting as though society isn't prepared for your degree of affection. Hold on, bro. You weren't being sincere. Before destroying your marriage, you were looking for emotional insurance. Third comment. I can't emphasize this enough. You are not a polyamorous person. You're a boring person who sought to reinvent himself as self-discovery by romanticizing his coworker. Communication, not treachery, is the first step for true polyamorous people. You didn't come clean until you were turned down. You're stunned that your wife left you now. Jesus, it's an unrealistic victim complex. You were not penalized for being truthful. You were disciplined for your selfishness. I was unfairly accused of something by the second narrative, women. I demonstrated my innocence. 12 years have passed and my life is still in ruins. And those women got away with it. I gave it a lot of consideration as to whether or not I should tell others about what was done to me years ago. But I'm still troubled by this encounter. As you could have inferred from the headline, I am a heterosexual male of 38 years of age before we begin discussing subjects pertaining to Sir. I have never cheated on a woman or mistreated her in any other manner in my life. I have never shouted at a woman during an argument, struck her, or made her do anything against her will. Although this does not imply that I am a flawless person, I can state with absolute confidence that I have never in my life considered attacking a woman. We must now travel back in time. About 12 years, in fact. I got to know a female. I'll give Charlie a call. Charlie was a bit of a friend back in the day. She and I initially met in a club. We both attended at that time, and I added her to my contacts after many months. Nothing occurred with her boyfriend at the time, until she texted me at random one day to ask whether I had anything planned for the evening. No, I didn't. Thus, we decided to meet together for supper. Things were really informal on my end while she was at my house. I didn't move at all. She ended her relationship with her partner and genuinely chose not to pursue things. But I was completely unaware of this when she informed me of her availability. In any case, we went to the club later that day, danced and enjoyed ourselves. She eventually expressed her want to return home and requested if I would be willing to take her to her front door. Yes, of course. I reasoned that since her house is on the way home anyhow, why not arrive at her place in a gentleman's manner? I was asked if I wanted to come upstairs. This is where I have to be honest. Charlie is a really beautiful woman. Additionally, I did find her to be really pretty. I followed her upstairs. However, I didn't start anything. I'm a shy and a little uncomfortable person. As she walked into her bedroom, I sat down on the couch and greeted her dog. The next thing I hear is, "Hey, even though I'm terrible at these things, would you mind coming over?" She was in lingerie when I walked to the bedroom, staring at me before coming over and removing my shirt. One thing paved the way for another. After we had sex, she started acting strangely the next morning, asking whether I would mind leaving after taking a shower and claiming that this was a one-time occurrence. I concurred and reassured her that she didn't need to make things more awkward than they were. I even inquired about her general well-being. No, everything is fine. Please remember that this was an isolated incident. I assured her that was okay and nodded. Before leaving, I wished her a good day and had a shower. Everything appeared to be going okay so far. A few days later, I receive a summons to the local police station. As it happens, Charlie reported me for various offenses. According to the allegations, I allegedly gave her ketamine so that I could use her for sex without getting her permission. To be honest, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Charlie really asked me to her house, made the move, and I just did the right thing, even though neither of us used drugs that evening, honoring the limits she has set for herself. The police asked me, "How do you explain these blood test results?" And I can still remember it. Charlie tested positive for ketamine according to a paper he pushed over. Despite my confusion, I informed the officer that I had no idea if she had used the drug the day before, the day after, or any other time. He gave me a disbelieving expression that I will never forget. He went on with his question. 3 months later. Since then, I have been in court and am being questioned by the judge and attorneys once again. Sitting in the rear of the courtroom are some old friends of mine who are looking at me like they've seen the devil. My lawyer and 2 very close friends were the only people who could help me at that time. They just didn't believe the narrative. Apart from that, stories have spread so fast that I've had individuals drive by my apartment and write death threats and other offensive things on my vehicle and walls. Family members abandoned me because I would still be a junkie even if I wasn't abusing others. They said that other from alcohol and marijuana, I had never used any other drugs. I won't go into the specifics of the trial, but I was exonerated on a technicality. Authorities heard conflicting accounts from Charlie and the witnesses she called, but the harm had been done. I had previously been falsely accused of something I would never have considered. Word got out, and I had to spend a lot of money just to have a good defense. In that instance, several of my old pals pretended that the justice system's institutionalized sexism was the cause of my acquittal. And they will undoubtedly continue to promote the idea that I am a perp if they discuss me at all today. Since then, my family's circumstances have never been the same, and very few people are aware of that narrative because the first reaction is often in the middle. Leave this place. Quit making things up. And what did you do? Jesus, my argument. No matter how perfectly I have behaved over the past nearly 25 years, it is irrelevant. As a male, there are some accusations you will never be able to refute. Why is it worse? I'm not only whining about how few people actually believed me because I'm a male. Additionally, this concerns real victims of instance because guess what? Every day, these ladies who despise red pill types abuse stories like mine. That is absolutely not what I desire. I'm calling for honesty and love, not a gender conflict. More equity for those wrongfully accused of such heinous crimes is something I'd want to see. At least the classic innocent until proven guilty or dubious pro theory. Fortunately, our legal system is sufficiently developed to do that, due to the fact that I was exonerated and not wrongfully convicted. The stigma endures, though. I'm still dealing with the fallout from Charlie's reprehensible attempt to make money off of her unfounded charges. And you know what? I've heard that she was able to frame another man for assault around 2 years later. I'm not familiar with the specifics. According to what I've heard, she made a ton of money doing that. Why am I posting this anyway? Mostly because I remained mute about these events for years. I believed for years that no one would trust you anyhow, and not many did. Despite the fact that I'd done nothing wrong, the majority lost faith in me. After that incident with Charlie, I even started dating and confided in 2 of my partners about the whole event. I was not believed by any of the women. In fact, that caused one to break up. I assure you that I am not resentful or have developed a hatred for women. All I want is to go on with my life and lead it like everyone else. However, I still receive particular stares from specific people in my community, and it is destroying me. Also, Charlie and her coke-loving buddies never truly apologized to me. Eventually, I did learn that Charlie and her group acted in a rather planned manner. They chose to play me that way after they met the day I left Charlie's apartment to go high. They were all set free, even after I made the decision to file charges for false accusations myself. How that occurred is still beyond me. However, I recall them giggling in the courthouse and Charlie giving me that one smile that was intended to convey to me that I was a man. In any case, no one will believe you. My hands begin to shake once again as I type this. All of it feels so awful you won't believe it. At the time, my business failed as well. I had to rebuild my life from the ground up after losing a lot of clients. The public exposure the case has received has forced me to reconstruct my whole life, and I have never been able to fully recover from that blow. Given how long ago, this was not even today. So yes, you may do whatever you want with that narrative. I only want to spread some knowledge in the hopes that as many people as possible would realize that males are structurally disadvantaged in several aspects of life. And to exacerbate things more, there are a lot of actual assault victims. I also want people to not believe them, which is the final goal. All I want is for society to shift so that everyone treats one another with the same decency that we want to receive. Asking for or not being able to, in any case, can't be that hard. Please feel free to comment and share your opinions. Apart than that, I hope everyone is doing well here. Remarks. First comment. I'm so sorry. I hope you overcome this and totally recover on a social and personal level. I believe that I would think about relocating. I hope the best for you. Words versus words is the issue in many situations like this one. Frequently, neither side can be proven correct. It is devastating when criminals escape punishment, and it is much more devastating when innocent people are falsely implicated. Regarding what to do about it, I have no response. I'm hoping for the best for every victim. I appreciate your thoughts, OP. For the simple reason that I refuse to allow this one lady take away my house, I will not relocate. The term proof is crucial when it comes to demonstrating correctness. Then without a reasonable doubt. You see, it's really simple to create accusations of any kind. I could also circulate false information about Charlie to get back at him if I wanted to. Of course, I'm not going to do it, but anyone could do it. Until proven guilty, she is innocent. That's the way to approach these issues. Second comment. It's a compelling tale. I'm sorry you experienced it. When my kid leaves for college, I'm going to speak to him. No sex or hookups when intoxicated or high. Join a relationship if he wants to have sex. Ensure that others are aware that you are seeing this woman. Take your time entering the bedroom. Take a week or so to get to know one another and determine whether this is sincere. I must admit that being in a relationship is just better, even if I had hookups during my first 2 years in college. I can recall a time when I had to have a real encounter with a woman. If my memory serves me well, she gave me a hand job after I played with her breasts. No sexual relations. When this woman sobered up the next day, I was still a virgin. It was forced, she informed pals. It wasn't forced at all. Things got out of hand since we were both intoxicated. Every time I touched her, I asked her permission, so it was all consensual. Fortunately, her friends observed that it was consensual and persuaded her not to do anything. Not other males are as fortunate. Make sure you're covered. We appreciate you viewing the video. We've got more stories in store for you if you're interested in hearing them. Just press the like button, subscribe to our channel, and tell your friends about it. Story 4. We believed you'd find your way back. She didn't mutter. The waitress could hear the sign outside the diner flickering half dead all day long because she yelled it loudly enough. Breakfast opened late. The smell of thawed hash browns and burnt coffee filled the air inside. I recall that the waitress had on a name tag that read Glenda and cherry-shaped earrings. It's funny what you remember when everything seems to be falling apart. It had only taken me 5 minutes to use the restroom. I even rushed because I knew how my stepmother disliked waiting. The booth was deserted as I emerged. They cleared their plates. I had lost my jacket. The automobile keys are gone. The vehicle itself is no longer there. Persuaded it was some terrible prank, I went outdoors. Perhaps the automobile had been relocated. My dad, perhaps. Just around the corner, my dad would be there grinning and saying the same worn-out words. We believed you'd find your way back. But all I could see was night and asphalt. And then I heard her voice. The waitress behind me cried out, Glenda, "Are you all right, sweetheart?" My chest felt as though it had fallen in on itself as I opened my lips to speak, but the words caught. That's when I noticed the taillights right before the highway curve far down the road. The vehicle did not turn around or slow down. Glenda followed my gaze. Her mouth parted slightly. Were your parents there behind her? Another waitress came by as the kitchen door opened and spoke softly as she believed. I was unable to hear. According to that woman, they no longer have duty for her. Then suddenly my knees gave way. I threw my duffel bag, a pair of clothes, a used toothbrush, and a dog-eared copy of Jane Eyre from the library onto the sidewalk. My life in a sack torn wide open. At that time, I didn't weep. I believe. That's what shock does. It stops you in your tracks, as though your heart hasn't gotten up to your body. Glenda offered me a blanket and some hot chocolate. If I wanted to call someone, she asked. I gave a head shake. I had no phone at all. Weeks ago, they had been disconnected. Like me, my prepaid one was left in the glove compartment. I stood at the side of the parking lot until the last semi-truck passed through town and the air went blue with cold. I can't recall if I hoped they would return. For a while, perhaps I did. There was a plastic window at the bus stop across the road. My reflection was split in two by a scratch that ran through the middle of it. I spent a lot of time researching it, not because I was impressed by anything. Number. All I was doing was attempting to identify her. The young woman with the broken glass. Her shoes were mismatched. She had an excessively thin coat. She was so confused and chilly that her lips were quivering. But beyond the surface, there was more. Something that looks like steel is beginning to rise. I wasn't helpless. All I wanted was to stop being disposable. I also quit waiting to be selected for the first time. I got up. I closed my purse with a zipper. I pondered as I gazed down that lengthy path. Let them go. I'll figure it out. After they left me, I slept for the first time behind a petrol station nestled between a loading crate and a dumpster. A janitor called Rick threw me a bag of chips before his shift and murmured, "Find somewhere warm before midnight." Police officers become agitated. I kept the fact that I had nowhere warm to go from him. I didn't tell anyone. I followed the sunrise west after exchanging my library book for a bus pass at the conclusion of that week. A crooked assistance wanted sign was attached to the door of a cafe in the next town over. I walked inside almost freezing, wearing the same clothing as the night they drove away. After giving me a once-over, the manager issued me a name tag. I didn't provide references, and he didn't ask for them. When the shelter's heating failed due to winter storms, I slept on a stack of old tablecloths in the storage area, cleaned the men's restroom, wiped tables, and suffered 3 burns on my wrist on the griddle during the first month. Nobody was aware. I informed them that I lived just outside the city. I took the shifts no one wanted and worked extra shifts. I never grumbled because I could still remember what it was like to be abandoned. Her voice came back to me. From 100 Tiny Moments, my stepmother. Would you mind spending some time watching Maddie? I must take a nap. I take it you're not attending college this year? Someone has to be in the home. There's no sacrifice involved. A member of this family you are. Until I wasn't, I was. But I said nothing. Silence was safer than visibility back then. This is the portion. They will never be aware. My dad's checks bounced, so I paid the electricity bill. Every night, I prepared dinner while she watched television. While they argued in private, I assisted my younger sister with her arithmetic assignments. Home needed me, so I declined 2 scholarships. I continued to give and give. The car continued to drive off without me. There were nights when I wondered what I had done wrong as I gazed at the ceiling in that diner storage room. What aspect of myself was so simple to remove I didn't break, though? My hands were bleeding from folding napkins. I committed coffee orders to memory as if they were holy texts. Every tip I received was placed in an old coffee tin marked college fund, even if I didn't know when or if I'd ever use it. Since invisible people can move without being noticed, I purposefully became invisible. Additionally, I made eggs for strangers every day after I woke up. Like a prayer, I said the same thing over and over. They believed me to be silent. They were unaware of my danger. The town appeared smaller than I recalled 5 years later. Or perhaps the version of myself that used to shrink within it has just outgrown me. The ancient conservatory where the chandelier hung like rumor and laughing reverberated more than truth was the venue for the gala. It was a fundraiser for youth arts programs sponsored ironically by companies that hadn't hired a young person in decades. I arrived alone, a black dress, simple, elegant, no jewelry, just a silver pin in the shape of a compass on my lapel. One of the only things I'd kept from the diner days. A reminder that I never got lost. I chose my direction. The room was gold-lit and crowded with people who'd once called me invisible. Men in tailored suits shook hands with women wearing names like credentials. I kept my distance, watching them swirl around wine tables and silent auction displays. Then I heard her voice. I didn't realize they were hiring out of town. Help now. It moved across the room like a razor coated in pearls. My stepmother stood at the wine table clutching a glass like it was a crown. Her hair was darker than I recalled, dyed brittle at the ends. Her smile, however, remained unchanged. Condescension still seeped through it. I hadn't been acknowledged by her. Obviously not. I was still the girl with the scratched shoes quietly doing the dishes in her eyes. The person who departed without creating a commotion and slept on floors. I saw her lean toward a woman wearing blue sequins while sipping her drink. She said, "That one looks familiar." Another intern, most likely. I didn't answer. Then, no. Let her speak. Permit her to chuckle. Let her ignorance fill the room like smoke. The announcer then took the stage as the lights went down. The primary sponsor for tonight has consented to speak a few words but wants to stay anonymous. The focus turned on me. I made my way to the stage. Calm, slow, intentional. I sensed a change in the room's temperature. People turned. The discussion ended in the middle of a phrase. Like punctuation, my heels clicked on the marble floor. I grabbed the microphone. Allow the quiet to persist. Then I grinned. In fact, I'm the featured sponsor for tonight. Some folks let out a gasp. My stepmother became pale. However, I appreciate you reminding me of my progress. It took some time for the applause to start. When the air is too heavy with shame, it never does. The cameras followed me as I went down away from her, but it did so louder than I had anticipated. Even though I didn't look at her, I could tell by the way her hand shook around the wine glass. The way my father bent his head behind her as if he were looking at a picture on the wall. He hadn't spoken at all yet. And for some reason, that stillness was more painful than all of her taunts put together. However, I wasn't looking for closure here. I have a message to convey. I don't need your table. I constructed my own. I didn't blow up. I enlarged. Nobody ever warns you about that. Rock bottom. It's sturdy. And if you plant anything deep enough, even sadness may sprout roots. I always began off tiny. A site where I shared easy dishes and meditations for the evening. A self-care starter kit made out of dollar store face masks and discount store notebooks. And a handmade candle line poured in a friend's basement were among the things I had once muttered to myself to survive. However, it struck a chord because it was genuine rather than ostentatious. Uncooked, silently rebellious. The brand expanded gradually before a retired school teacher's TikTok became viral after one article in a local newsletter. Women from all throughout the nation began placing orders. The displaced women who noticed something in the way I signed each box were also women who had been erased. You're not too much. Simply put, you were placed in the incorrect garden. By the third year, I had rented a warehouse and had 2 full-time employees. A venture capital firm approached in the 4th year. Since I didn't want to be controlled by year 5, I declined. The cover of a glossy magazine slipped over the cafe table. The wellness business is being reshaped by top women under 30. I didn't weep, but I also didn't grin. I didn't know who to contact. I didn't want to call anyone. Rather, I went to the park and sat behind a tree that I used to hide under when I was younger, and I felt satisfied for the first time in my life. I was unaware that the unraveling had already begun. Federal investigation was causing my father's financial empire, which was supported by elderly clients and flimsy partnerships, to collapse. A whistleblower's unscrupulous accounting practices dominate my stepmother's life. Her fine wines and Botox spa getaways started to outweigh their mortgage. Like birds, the rumors flew around their guarded neighborhood. The last reversal was the local entrepreneurship summit that they had previously sponsored. They were dropped silently, without a word, each spring. The recently appointed keynote speaker. I stood backstage that night dressed in navy. Just customized control, no glitz. I felt the weight of the silver compass pin still fixed there when I adjusted the lapel of my blazer. I was asked whether I required a teleprompter by a producer. No, I said. The microphone's voice burst out. The keynote speaker tonight is a woman who came from nothing. Its tale is one of change rather than merely business. Cheers. Flashlights. An ocean of faces. And on the rear row 12, a long way from the table of sponsors. I saw them, my father, my stepmother, sitting where they used to be in charge, clapping with robotic precision, grinning as though nothing had happened to them. I uttered one word before leaving the platform, but I didn't speak to them directly. Some people are born into power. Others construct it brick by brick and out of junk. We recall our identity. I hadn't seen that number in years until my phone buzzed with a message that night. They need assistance, Maddie. Please, they're not doing well. I spent a lot of time looking at the screen, longer than I should have. I typed after that. I was abandoned at a bus stop by you. I hit send after building the freeway. A private room on the top level of the former courtroom building, now transformed into a sleek, soulless space, was the venue for the supper. It was the sort of place where terrible people bargained over low lights and rosemary lamb. I wasn't eager or uncontrollable, but I was 10 minutes early. Like a member of the royal family, the maitre d' welcomed me. I guess I was in this town. He took me down a velvet, curtailed hall to a chamber so silent it echoed within a round table, all white linens, candlelight glinting on the rims of wine glasses. Everything carefully set up for something that smelt of pretense or reconciliation. They were already seated. Roger Hemsley, his former business partner, my father, my stepmother, and the man who once gave me a dog pat on the head and said, Girls like you grow into wives, not CEOs. He got up to shake my hand now. With well-honed charisma, he continued, "Look at you all grown up. You've done well for yourself." I chose not to smile. Wine was poured by the waiter, as like nothing had ever broken between us, as though she hadn't stabbed me and left me crying in silence. My stepmother wore pearls and had a refined face. It was 9 years ago. As she observed me, she whispered, "We've all made mistakes, but we always knew you'd be exceptional." My father said nothing, of course. He chewed his steak and stared at his plate as if it would provide him with an escape from the night. The conversation danced around the real reason we were here. Hemsley made references to cooperation, common ideals, new beginnings, and strategic legacy alliances. Interpretation. I was there last, and they had run out of alternatives. I didn't come to invest, though. Halfway through the second meal, I decided to stop. I extracted a compact digital recorder from my backpack. I carefully place it next to my glass of water. The room froze. Prior to moving forward, "Calm as the moon," I said. "It seems only fitting that you hear this click. Simply leave her there. She will eventually crawl back. They always do." My stepmother's voice was distinct, icy, and clear. Her tone sliced like a knife, although the audio cracked a little. "She is not a concern. It appeals to girls. There is nowhere else for them to go." There was silence in the room. Nobody grabbed their wine. Nobody breathed. The first person to smile was Roger Hemsley. As if the floor had moved under him, he reclined in his chair. "I didn't know this," he said. I said. Inside, I took a sealed envelope out of my coat pocket and set it in the middle of the table. "Here is my official disengagement from all conversations, partnerships, and commitments, whether they be personal or legal," I stated. My stepmother's fingers were shaking on the stem of her glass, and she was now pale. "I only know one word: final and indisputable." I returned to put an end to this. "Not to pardon it," I muttered in a low voice. I got up. No rage, no drama, nothing except silence. They had left me trembling on a seat with nothing except a tattered bag, and a name that they didn't believe was worth keeping in mind. They now sat still in the ruins of their own dominion, surrounded by fake smiles and lighting, whereas I left unharmed. There was a gentle click as the door closed behind me. Suddenly it was finished. Located distant from city lights on the edge of a forested hill, the home seemed peaceful rather than harsh. Only an old gravel driveway, a wraparound porch, and a modest sign at the foot of the mailbox were present. There was no gate or intercom. Beneath the piano, a record crackled softly, a silent house inside a record. There was a murmur in the fireplace. On the stove, a kettle murmured. I sat barefoot on the floor next to the fireplace, wearing a cardigan that was older than my business license and holding a stitched duffel bag, the same one I had taken at the bus stop, worn and frayed but never discarded. I discovered what I knew was still there inside. The original bus ticket was crumpled and soiled with time, but it was still readable in one direction. No specific location. I held it for a moment, and then I fed it to the fire, watched it curl, blacken, and disappear. My dog barked once outside, but he didn't chase anything. Soon, a girl would be coming for her mentorship session from the nearby high school. One of the 10 I provided each season to females who had somehow fallen behind. A few aspired to become cooks. She only wanted to create something that no one could take away, according to several writers. I understood exactly what she meant when she said that, so I smiled. As I opened my journal and scrawled 6 words across the top of the page, I poured the tea. I was dropped off at a bus stop. I then turned to the following page. Nothing. Awaiting. I cleared the path now.